Welcome to the Mechanical Room. A Centrotherm production focusing on all things in and around the HVAC industry. And now, your hosts, Michael Sokaris and Matthew Pryce.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to episode number 6, I believe, Matthew. This is our June 2021 episode. What's going on? How are you?
Very good, Michael. It is good to see you. It's been a bit. You know, typically we work in adjacent offices, and I sort of kick your door down to demand you like approve things for me and whatnot whenever I need them. But you've been out and about, as I understand it, traveling the country a bit. Doing what? Where you been? What have you been up to? I miss you, man.
Yeah, I miss you too, man. Other than you coming in and asking for money to spend in the marketing budget all the time, but yes. So actually, we've been doing a lot here at Centrotherm with representation. We've got some new representation in certain markets. In Texas, we brought on board Pepco. We're really excited about that. And in Southern California, also really excited to bring on Delco. And so we were out there onboarding and training and getting everybody jazzed up to go out and sell UL 1738 venting.
Wonderful. I'd like to write a rap song now about our reps, because Delco and Pepco will work really well together in terms of rhyming and what have you. So it sounds like you've been out there doing training, which is wonderful synergy for our guest today, Peter DeFreitas of IAPMO, who is the New England Director of Education for and a big time trainer in the HVAC world. But before we get there, let's go and let's give some prizes away for the June edition of Show Us Your Pipe. Welcome back. It is time to give away some cool t-shirts. I generally model them here on the Mechanical Room. This is what we send out to the Show Us Your Pipe winners each month. That and some hats and some swag and Michael Sokaris autographed 8x10s. But let's that's right. They are only appreciating every single day. So the winner this month is Aalanco Service Corporation. Congratulations to those guys. They're out of Westboro, Massachusetts. Their winning post, posted by Daniel Bandanza, who is a senior project manager for Aalanco, is really, really a nice looking installation. We're obviously showing some of these for those of us who are watching on YouTube. You can see what's going on in this Mechanical Room, and it's pretty intense. It's really, really nice HTP products here. I mean, they got those nice intake stickers on there, and everything's clearly defined. There's a lot of crisscrossing pipe stuff that's all like neatly done. And just a quick shout out to the location. It's at the Mill Pond Senior Living Center in Taunton, Massachusetts. And the Corcoran Management Group is the property management for their senior living facility, and also New Ecology. An organization that is a community-based sustainable development organization, a nonprofit with a mission to address global environmental equity issues by making the built environment more efficient, healthy, durable, and resilient, was involved with this too. I did reach out to Daniel, but I wasn't able to connect with him in time. I'd love to hear a little bit more about New Ecology. So if anybody's out there who knows anything about that, please get in touch with us. It's fascinating. It's a really nice installation with a great termination. Michael, what are your thoughts on this beautiful HTP?
Well, number one, a thing I always joke with you about, there is no diamond plate in this one. So I'm very impressed that we picked something without diamond plate.
True. They're freestanding in the middle of the room. So, I mean, they would have to build something uniquely. They should have diamond plated the floor.
There you go. The other thing is, I want air intake and exhaust stickers. We need to do some branded stickers I think that's a real nice touch. And then the last thing that I would say is looking at the termination. I don't know if you see this, but maybe I'm going to give away my age here, but go back in the day. I won't give the year, but when you're looking at that external termination, there's those 4 pipes that are running. It looks like those hot rods that they used to put those pipes on the side of the car. I give them style points for that, because of that look. I really like it.
Absolutely. I know exactly what you're talking about. I'm actually going to probably show a photo of one of those hot rods there, and maybe I'll Photoshop the exhausts to be not chrome as they typically are, but to be our polypropylene gray, beautiful. The hexadecimal color is, of course, 787878 for all of our designers out there. That's the gray code. It is really nice. That termination is really, really neat and tidy. I like, so obviously this is 4 individually exhausted HTPs, and it's just sort of an up and out, but with nice window clearance, so that exhaust is very far away from many of those windows, snorkeled upwards, and supported properly in every way. It's clearly a methodical, nice, well-measured, sort of accurate. You can just tell these guys know what they're doing, which is this is why we do this, is to highlight professionalism like this. So congratulations to Aalanco. Go ahead.
Yes, congratulations to Aalanco. I even have a tie-in to our next to our guest when it comes to one of the things that you said, the window clearance that has to do with code.
Absolutely.
And there is some interesting and exciting things going on in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and that our guest is going to be talking a little bit about that. So that's a good way to tie your comment to our next guest.
Absolutely, and we will be right back with Peter DeFreitas of IAPMO to discuss window clearance and all that other stuff. So we'll be right back.
Stay tuned.
Welcome back to the Mechanical Room. And once again, we have a very exciting guest today. We have hit on contractors. We've hit on some magazine executives. We've got organizational leaders, and that's where we're going today with Peter DeFreitas. So we welcome Peter in. I just want to run down his bio here, which is very impressive, with some fun facts. So back in the day, when I was just a wee lad, he was working for a plumbing company on Cape Cod as an apprentice before becoming licensed journeyman in '89 and achieving master plumbing's license in 1990. I won't give out his ID number, but he did include that on this very thorough biography, very impressive and thorough biography. Then he moved on as a self-employed plumbing contractor, honing his knowledge of all things Mechanical Room, operating a plumbing service and a construction installation business. Then he moved on to, he was probably breaking the rules as a contractor. Then he went to start enforcing the rules as a plumbing gas inspector code enforcement officer for the town of Yarmouth, Massachusetts. And serving as an inspector, he began teaching part-time for the Massachusetts Plumbing Apprentice Training Program and becoming involved with his current organization, IAPMO, as a contract instructor. Now, for 11 years, he's been the Director of Training Education for IAPMO, the International Association Plumbing Mechanical Officials. He is an Air Force vet. Obviously, he's been in the industry for quite some time now, and he's an active participant with the Massachusetts Plumbing Board, which we're going to speak at at great length with today, at great length. There we go. He's involved in industry-related groups such as Education Committee Chairman of the NEPGMIA. We'll get into that. The Gas Fitting Associations, FCMPA, CMPGIA. There's so many acronyms I can't even spell them all out here. This guy is entrenched in the HVAC industry, and of course he enjoys spending time near the ocean, surrounding Cape Cod, Massachusetts, and the foothills of the Adirondack. Hey, that's where we are. And when he's not in those locations, he and his wife enjoy traveling in their RV. I would love to hear more about that. He works around the house as a handyman, working on the property on the tractor, sightseeing, and good times with family and friends. Peter DeFreitas, we welcome you to the Mechanical Room. Michael Sokaris, please kick off this interview.
Yes, well, so thank you. And Peter, thank you for making time out of your busy schedule. Is there anything that you don't do after that lengthy introduction? My God, thank you for being in the industry. You certainly offer a lot. So my first question, again, our podcast is about the mechanical room and anything in and around it. You are part of the IAPMO organization. Some of our listeners and viewers may not know what that is. So can you give us a lowdown on what is IAPMO? What is their goal? What do you do for them?
Certainly, Mike. Thank you. And thank you very much, Matthew, for the introduction. IAPMO, as Matthew said, stands for International Association of Plumb Mechanical Officials. It's a worldwide membership organization based in Ontario, California. I work under the direction of the Training Education Department out near Chicago, Illinois. And IAPMO basically has three key elements. They do code development. They write the uniform plumbing code, uniform mechanical code. There's the green solar code. They've got lots of radiant documentation. They also do product testing. Everybody's heard of UL, something UL tested or rated. IAPMO has laboratories that does the same for the plumbing industry, heating industry, and expanding into the building industry also. And then education is kind of the third big piece. And that's kind of where I fit into the IAPMO, team and the IAPMO companies. They do training all over the world. I mean, literally in all different continents. We've written the code book for other continents, so there's training there. And I manage and direct the Massachusetts piece of that. And then IAPMO has kind of a charitable situation too, the I Wish Foundation. Currently, we're bringing running water to the Navajo Nation out in the western part of our country. It's hard to believe the United States, people don't have running water, but that's the situation. So, so very versed, well-rounded, plumbing, heating, HVAC, mechanical, business units, number of companies.
I definitely want to come back to that I wish stuff, a little bit later on, because that is great to hear. We love, that kind of stuff, giving back to the community, giving back to, to underserved populations, et cetera. So, but you did mention that you are, you're the big cheese in New England. For those who don't know, there's some big news out there. What's the recent haps in Massachusetts specifically? Tell us what's going on.
Yeah, as I say, Massachusetts, like Matthew has said, long time coming, couple of years in the process, has just had a new code update, new code change. Massachusetts is a unique state compared to a lot of them. We have our own, specific state code. Whereas, for example, the IAPMO UPC is used in 30 plus states, but not Massachusetts. So that's kind of unique for my situation. So they just worked for the last couple of years on some code changes, some basic stuff in administration, a few plumbing items. We use lead and oakum in the plumbing systems. That's going to be an optional joining method, which is a great idea for safety reasons to evolve to newer technologies with clamps and gaskets. But the big thing is gas venting. There's been concerns over the years with plastic type pipes for venting gas appliances. Primarily the kind of PVC came into the industry 20 plus years ago. And back then, myself was plumbing at the time, and you say, well, you kidding me? We're going to vent a gas appliance with a piece of plastic? That's craziness. Well, as things have evolved, polypropylenes come in there, and kind of the top there, CPVC is allowed, PVC is allowed. But Massachusetts has been kind of watching some possible denigration with a plain old basic PVC that's used for plumbing. Meet standards for drainage or for venting plumbing systems, not really for flue gases. So that's probably the big thing right now. So that all came out mid-April. So we're kind of in the process now of spreading the word, having some local meetings and regional meetings. Lots of question and answers. Geez, it's been there for 20 years. What do you do now? So that's kind of what we've been after the last couple of months, and I foresee that certainly leading into the fall time, keeping busy with that. So that's the big news as far as the code change. Every couple of years, there's some updates, and this is kind of a big one for us.
So with that said, it's, pretty significant disruption in the market, right? You said 20 years of people doing it a certain way, and now there's some guidance to do it differently. How is the state of Massachusetts dealing with that disruption? And how are the contractors learning or adapting to the new way of life in Mass?
Yeah, good way to put it. Disruption. You can add confusion into that. You can add misconceptions into that. The language out, and basically in Massachusetts, again, kind of a unique system. but Massachusetts requires everything to be product accepted. And what that means is for something to be installed in the plumbing system, by a licensed gas fitter or plumber, it must go through some sort of standard or testing. So a third party, such as a UL or an IAPMO, somebody tests the product, and then it meets that standard for what it's supposed to be installed for. So in this case, flue gas venting. So then it's a authorized or okay Massachusetts. Currently, there's only a couple of products and very limited brand names that are allowed to be installed under that product acceptance. In the bigger picture, again, I'll kind of say plain old PVC pipe, the white plastic pipe most HVAC guys are venting their furnaces with now, doesn't meet that flue gas standard. It meets that plumbing standard. So the couple brands that are meeting the flue gas standard and are in fact product accepted in Massachusetts certainly are the leaders in the market right now. So I think the supply houses and the distribution is a little bit of a challenge in trying to figure who has the product and where it may be. So that's going to be a challenge. And then even the wording, kind of how it laid out. Could we use all the, let's say, CPVC for an example, or PVC for an example? So that wording has got to be cleared up a little bit. And then the polypropylene is the other plastic. And of course, the polypropylene meets all the standards, kind of exceeds the basics that a PVC or a CPVC would exceed. So polypropylene, is certainly the product to go with. It covers everything. But again, limited kind of basis in Massachusetts. Not a whole lot of manufacturers product accepted here yet.
Understood. Okay. So you alluded to sort of the lengthy process or the road that led to these recent changes. Can you trace the beginnings, the historical? I guess it's sort of can you talk about how the CoChase process actually happens and trace the process by which we got to where we are today? Outlining maybe any obstacles or resistance that occurs, and where does that happen?
And the whys.
Yeah,
we hit on some of the whys, but the whys of why the Mass Plumbing Board made this decision.
Mm-hmm. Certainly, yes. Massachusetts had its own code since for about 60 plus years now, so it's been around. And they say there's no real set schedule of code changes, such as a national code typically every 3 years is on a code cycle. So Massachusetts kind of compiles input from industry. From the licensees, from the inspector community, the engineering community, and they kind of compile this list. They call it up there in Boston. At a point they say, okay, it's time to move these forward. So proposed code change together, and then the plumbing board. It's a 9-person board. They review that data and say, yeah, this is going to be good for Massachusetts, or this makes sense. So for this example, on the flue gases, there was some signs of the white PVC failing, turning and almond brown color, which led to concerns. Certainly over the years, we've implemented carbon monoxide protection and requirement for those devices, so stuff like that, so buildings are safer with flue gases. So once they kind of just determine what those code changes are, and again, in this case, it was administrative stuff. PEX tubing, for another example, was limited to 3 stories. Now it's going to be allowed for 6 stories. A little bit of expansion in the use of PVC in commercial buildings. Typically, Massachusetts regulates PVC use for plumbing to residential, so a little more expansion commercial. So they had a series of changes. So once that kind of comes together, they vote to move it forward, and then it does have to go state process. It starts going up to state government. Obviously, legal takes a look at it. It goes to accounting and finance. It goes all the way up to basically the governor's administration level to make sure it's going to be business friendly or it's not going to conflict with other codes or laws. Once that happens, it becomes a public document. And then the industry gets to look at it. They hold a public hearing. So they held a public hearing. Many people went and commented on it. They accept, testimony at the hearing and written comments. Then the plumbing board reviews that. They take a look, and they, in this case, did edit a few of the things, taking the public comment and advisement. And then it kind of trickles back through that system again, gets the final sign off. So with this one here, that was all kind of late in 2019 in this situation. And then all of a sudden it sat for about a year. So, there was kind of some rumors. Was it the COVID situation? Was there some issues with some of the language maybe? So that kind of added a long period of time to this particular change. And then it does become promulgated. It's a Secretary of State office, become an official document for the Commonwealth of Mass. They set an effective date up, and very often there's a transition time. Like we had a huge code change back in 2014-15 timeframe, really changed the book a lot. And it came in March, and you could use either the old or the new book until September. So it kind of, they gave you a period of grace period. That did not happen this time. This code got announced in the middle of April, and it became effective on April 30th. So that's what kind of happened, and has caused the quick, abrupt, hurry up, we got to make a change within about 2 weeks, even though we had a couple years known this was coming.
Yeah. I think the initial meeting where they were kind of gave some market guidance was back in 2018, October of 2018. And yeah, to your point, it seemed like it took forever, and you didn't know what was causing the delay. Was it COVID? Was there a reversal of opinion? But it ultimately, I think they did the right thing and chose a safe option, for their constituents there.
Yeah, and I agree. Massachusetts, I think, is kind of a leader as far as looking forward at, things like that. When corrugated stainless steel tubing, the CSST came to the market, Massachusetts was very slow at allowing and approving that. As I say, they had PEX limited down to 3 stories until now, still PVC limitations. So they're very, very cautious and conscious on that, and that's part of that product acceptance process too. So don't know exactly why this code lingered for a year plus. Like I say, we can maybe attribute it to a little bit of COVID delays. There was some staff changes at the Division of Professional Licensure, which is our licensing board and entity. So that could have led to it. And then I'm sure there was some behind the scenes conversation that, none of us are privy to. They kind of, are we going the right road here? Or how are we going to implement this?
Right.
So I do want to ask about, your day-to-day stuff, your the training conferences and things like that. You just did one in Chicopee, Massachusetts last week. But I'm curious, because this gets in very granular with how laws are made and why they're made. So you mentioned PEX pipe is now allowed to go an additional 3 stories, right? So that
Correct.
seems like kind of such a minor change. So I mean, I guess how do they arrive at the first 3 stories? And what's the difference that leads us to meaning that now 6 stories is, the legitimate or the law-abiding way to install this stuff? It seems like kind of a really like a small change.
Small incremental change.
Right, yes. Well, when PEX came into the market, again, polybutylene was its predecessor, and that didn't go very well. There was some issues with some fittings there. PEX kind of improved a bit. And like I said, the board, the members are appointed every 3 years, so the board does evolve. There's been some members that may have served as many as 20 years, but it's always an evolving, changing. So the make of the board changes, and with that, policy and kind of even code interpretations evolve and change too. But PEX for this, we're talking about, when that came in, brand new product, the limitations of plastic-like pipes in the plumbing system in Mass, such as the PVC and ABS, they thought PEX would fall into the same category. They weren't just going to let it go statewide everywhere, in a skyscraper in Worcester and Boston or something. So they picked the number of 3 stories, and I believe it was based on size, because back then we kind of had, 3/8, half, 3/4, and 1 inch. That was about it. They didn't make PEX much bigger than that way back when. Then over the years, PEX has turned out okay. They haven't been proven failures. The technology and joining methods has evolved. Size has increased. So it was kind of time to expand the use. The 6-story, I believe, and this is kind of my opinion, CPVC for water piping is capped off at 6 stories. So residential use, maximum of 6 stories in Massachusetts. So how'd they go from 3 to 6? Pretty sure just being consistent with the water pipe, type pipes, non-copper pipes. So that's, I believe, why they went 3 to 6. Why haven't they taken PEX or CPVC from 6 to unlimited? Who knows? Again, that's just kind of the way Massachusetts does it.
So question for you about IAPMO and your role as far as training. You got a lot of things on your plate. Obviously, training is a big deal across the board for a lot of different things. But what is your objective when it comes back to the fuel gas, code? What is your objective? What are you trying to do? How are you trying to educate the market in your role with IAPMO?
Yeah, well, Massachusetts adopted contingentation for inspectors back in 2000. And so each of the inspectors, right now there's currently about 400 inspectors across the state. It's 351 cities and towns. So every town has an inspector, a couple have a few. So that's been around 20 plus years now. And it was to get all the inspectors on the same page and kind of understand the code language, the intent of the code, and then keep up to date with upcoming technology and changes and all that. So that turned into the licensees needing the requirement continuation in 2008. So inspector community did it for a while, and then the licensees. So now it's really good because all licensed gas fitters take a 3-hour class every year. All licensed plumbers take a 6-hour class every year. And all the inspectors do 12-hour education every year. So at that point in time, such as this, the fall classes, we're developing the curriculums now. It's going to be certainly the conversation on, the flue gas situation. That'll be kind of topic number one. But it really has helped our industry, I think, bringing us all closer to understand the intent of the code on the inspector side of things, not the old, hey, not in my city, not in my town type of story. And then the licensees kind of get to, repeat. I remember early on, back in 2008, I taught one of the first classes in the state. And, let's call it a senior gentleman said to me, geez, why do I got to be here? I've had my license 30 years, and my answer was kind of, yeah, because you got your license 30 years ago, you haven't opened the book since. So that's kind of the reasoning to get back into it. So I think the goal is to keep up with changes, address situations in a timely manner, and it does elevate the professionalism of our license here in Massachusetts.
How much pushback do you get? So you mentioned, sort of a generational thing there, and I assume that's sort of the probably the majority of pushback in terms of resistance to change. How do those people voice that to you? And is it just basically just complaining? And do they ever make headway? Do they ever make a good point to you?
Early on, the first couple of year or two or three, people again, why do I have to be here? I've already got my license, this and that. And they couldn't really justify their complaints because every time somebody would come in and maybe on the way in the door, they didn't seem too excited. Those are the ones that would shake your hand at the end of class, say, oh, that was a great class, or I didn't know that, or I didn't realize this. So I think the negativity is very minimal. And again, I think it's just because, somebody would rather be on the golf course for 6 hours than sit in a classroom type of thing. Everybody leaves learning a little something, and what you put into it, you're going to get out of it. Somebody's really paying attention, taking notes, asking questions, they're going to give you more out of it. So then again, it's, could be a young person, it could be a senior person, but the change early on, the first couple of years was tough. Well, we've been doing it now, for, over a dozen years. So it's kind of routine. Everybody knows they got to get that class in. Some people still complain and, why do you have to talk about this? Or we might have a related subject that wasn't too interesting to a lot of people. But it hit homes with somebody. We've done a lot of OSHA stuff and, training, a little quick segment on trenches or ladders or something. We had an opioid conversation. Now it's kind of a challenging conversation, but reality, in the trades. And obviously this year we touched on worker protection and COVID. That was kind of the related this year, which was timely. So I think I'd have to say most of the trade, majority of licensees feel it's worth attending, and I would guarantee everybody gets a little something out of it.
Now, is there more Peters across the country that work for IAPMO, and are all of you doing the same thing, or is it state by state? There's different needs and requirements.
Yes, yeah, IAPMO here in this country, United States, is set up in different regions and territories. So this would be New England region. A little bit of training up in Maine. We've got a little stuff going on in Rhode Island. In my region, we don't really do much over in Connecticut, New Hampshire, Vermont. They don't use the Uniform Plumbing Code, the IAPMO code book. And uniquely, like I said, even Mass doesn't use that. I monitor the Mass. But they'd be using another national code, and they kind of do other training. And then different regions, the Mid-Atlantic, the Midwest has similar regional manager. And then we do have a team of instructors that travel both nationwide and worldwide, offering different trainings. And then online programs, quite a resource in our Learning Center for online. So yeah, there's another similar person. I think I'm the only one that has the title, training director. There's people that do very similar, and then of course more expansive than I do.
Excellent. So I alluded to this event in Chicopee, Massachusetts last week, which is sort of, local, obviously Massachusetts, right in your wheelhouse. You were also the event coordinator for that, clearly. I was reading some emails about you scheduling everything and running down the agenda and stuff like that. I'd love to hear a little bit more about how you set these up and all of the, coordination between the location, the venue itself, and presenters and whatnot. I mean, you're a trainer, you're a technical guy. You're not necessarily the event, the event planner, but that seems to be a hat that you wear also. So yeah, just tell us a little bit about that, because that's sort of an interesting ancillary or parallel part of getting this knowledge to the necessary base that you needed to get to.
Yes, yeah, and that kind of came with this new role at IAPMO. When I took this job in 2010, as I mentioned, I was an instructor for them, and we do have, a great training department in the Chicago area. We have the travel department out in California, but that wasn't going to work specifically for what we do here in Massachusetts. So I schedule in excess of 125 classes every year for the licensees, and then in excess of about 20 classes a year for all the inspectors. IAPMO is a sole provider of training for the inspectors in Massachusetts. So I'm the lead trainer for them, literally stand up in front of the classroom in front of all the inspectors, have a team of a couple guys with me. And then I'm fortunate enough to have a very experienced instructor team. I have about 20 instructors that I manage statewide for the licensee program. So kind of starting with to build a curriculum, take what the state provides us for the outline, put that whole package together, what we're going to be doing. I prep a rough draft and all that, send it out to our training department where the professionals are, and they, make it look nice and put the book together and do the PowerPoint. And then kind of making the reservation, making the phone calls. And I'm here, making the setup.
Having a little bit of a technical lag here. I hopefully it pops back on.
Locations and venues. A handful of instructors help with that too. They have the local hall, a local place they know, a local run. We use restaurants, Nimbus. So it's a matter of scheduling the dates, scheduling the reservations, and then, as you said, Matthew, Centrotherm was a great event partner there and sponsorship for us. So kind of dealing with the folks there that you work with, and they sent a couple people to it. And we had a couple other of vendors and manufacturers there. This was a really trade show. We had several tables set up around rooms. The vendors were there to, kind of show their products, answer the technical questions we needed. And in that case, I'm kind of up front, moderating, going through it. And we had a good crowd of both inspectors and licensees there. So it's a busy job. Like I said, I do a lot of office time as far as scheduling, phone calls, emails. And then when my schedule has a class on it, hop on the road and take a drive somewhere. But I enjoy it. I enjoy the logistics, the kind of the management side of it. I kind of bring some of my experiences on scheduling or kind of laying stuff out in a lot from I had my own business. So that worked okay. But I wouldn't want to be sitting right at the desk in the office all the time. I like getting on the road and actually being out doing the classes. And then other related meetings, a lot of our associations, inspector associations, groups like that. Similarly, I work with those and we get some of that scheduled. So it's a good interaction.
There is no dust settling under your feet for sure.
No, that's for sure.
You mentioned it was in your bio, and you mentioned it a second ago. You have a business on the side. So are you just managing that, and you have your workforce? Or are you strapping on the tools and going out and doing hands-on stuff anymore, or there's not enough time for that?
I know, get dirty and all. Yeah, in the hands a while. I did plumbing company, so not really putting on the tool. Yeah, and it was just me, and it was great. That was kind of one of the chapters I led through here. It worked well. But no, now it's primarily the IAPMO thing, and then it's more an admin thing now. I do the Cape Cod Association. I'm the president of that, for an example, and so I kind of run that entire thing, set that up, schedule it, make all the planning for that. So the side business, the side thing is the CCPGA, or Cape Cod Plumbing Gas Association. And again, it's more of a training and educational type thing, similar to what I'm now wearing for a hat now type of deal. So
I
a lot of volunteer time with a couple other groups and associations.
A few episodes ago, we had Talbot G from Hardy on the program. and he was talking about technician shortage and trying to drive people into the industry. Are you experiencing that in Massachusetts in your private business? How do you see things moving forward for labor and technicians
Yes.
and such?
Yes, definitely a problem here in Massachusetts and the Northeast. You know, I think it's a nationwide issue. You know, you've heard the term the skills gap, and that's for sure. Right now, the average plumber in Massachusetts is kind of late 50s, just about my age. So give or take, you know, the 10 plus years, those guys are going to probably be getting done. And unfortunately, the backfill or the apprentice age now is somewhere in the 30s. So it's not that, you know, 18 to 22-year-old young person. So yeah, I think there is right now a shortage, and I don't see it being solved in the next generation because we have this gap. You know, going off to college is a great option. A lot of people do go off to college versus the blue collar or the, you know, the trade type of thing. I sit on 2 advisory boards for local tech schools, high school tech schools. And when I do go in and talk to the young people, you know, I tell them this is a really good profession. You know, the old cracks about the heating guy or the plumbing guy and all that, you know, it isn't true. It's a good profession. You can make a lot of money at it. I advise young people now to specialize in something, you know, be that specific manufacturer, boiler repair person, or know exactly how that computer board works on that furnace, or in the plumbing industry side of it, you know, get your backflow certification, be a local backflow guy, because we do have a shortage, and I see it getting worse going forward. And again, you know, I kind of had the choice when I was at high school. I went to regular high school. I didn't go to a Voc school or a tech school. And I think my parents' generation said, oh, geez, you know, you kind of go off to college type of thing. I went and looked at a couple. I enjoyed drafting, architectural drawing. I did that during high school. And so I went to Boston, had a couple places I was going to maybe look at, and just decided it wasn't going to be for me. So really the choices of back then are still the same. Either go off to college, further your education, get a real good job, or go in the military, serve your country, you know. So I think those 3 choices are still there. But I advise the young people to really pursue the trades, whether it's plumbing, heating, electrical, truck driving, welding. There's just a shortage, and I think we do have to be concerned with it going forward. And hopefully generationally, like I say, maybe my parents' generation kind of nudged the kids to put on the white collar and get off to college. The blue collar worker, the tradesperson, the person who works in the hands is as important, if not more so, going forward, I believe.
Yeah, and certainly a lot of those skills that you referred to can't be automated. So there's a market for that type of, you know, knowledge and technical ability that in perpetuity will be a necessary and lucrative situation. I know being a homeowner and having written checks to plumbers and electricians and all skills that I don't have, you know, there is certainly a need for that. You know, everywhere you turn, you know, there's always going to be something to that it needs fixing that you don't have the, you know, the personal knowledge of, or I personally don't have. So, you know, I mean, that's Hardy's big thing. Yeah. To Mike's point, is they're all about that, and they actually have a great documentary about that specifically, you know, and sort of making the exact same points that you just made. So it's nice to see there's some synergy in the, you know, in sort of mind share of that in the industry. So I have one more sort of technical question, or not even really technical, but sort of procedural question about you know, what you do and the ripple effect. And then I want to ask you about I Wish, and then we'll let you go. So you're training the inspectors pretty much exclusively, correct? So
yes.
Yes. How does that knowledge trickle down in the channel, and how are contractors supposed to know about this stuff, you know, sort of ahead of time? Who is responsible for that? I mean, obviously we do a lot of product training ourselves, but you know, we can't do it for everybody. So I mean, who is that incumbent upon to make sure that the people who are doing this stuff are up to date on all of it?
Yeah, and again, it starts, I kind of always say Boston when I talk about it, but at the Division of Professional Licensure, which is all of our licenses fall under, there's staff up there, and so they kind of compile, kind of like the code change scenario. They kind of compile the hot topics, the questions, the issues, You know, if there's a problem, geez, the phone's ringing about a specific item all the time, that would kind of hit the hot list. And so then when it's time to develop curriculums, you know, a couple times a year for the inspectors or on the annual basis for licensees, kind of look at what's been any kind of repetitive problem that inspectors are always hearing or always knowing about, or what is the hot topic at the state level. So those are kind of the primary things we start with. And then we go into the code book from there. And whether it's code changes, which again, we're going to be very busy going forward, or just revisiting code items that might be gray areas or might be confusing. You know, something as simple as connections to equipment. Seems simple, but then again, people start to kind of do things incorrectly or improperly. So the curriculum rolls out, and we try to keep it fairly timely. The inspectors do meet twice a year versus a licensee with a one class. But we try to keep it so that the material is coming out, so there isn't a gap between the inspector learning something and want to fail a guy because a licensee contractor didn't know about it in the mechanical room. You know, we don't want that to happen. So typically, you know, hopefully we merge those and mesh those together pretty well. And I think we do. Early on, it was difficult because both programs were up and running and there was a gap. But for example, this fall, you know, going into the fall of 2021, the licensees at their classes for all different providers will be hearing a lot of the same information inspectors do. And the inspector community in Massachusetts, I think, has got kind of a lot better themselves at sharing information. You know, from a guy sticking a little memo on his bulletin board at the office when somebody's applying for a permit, to when you meet a guy on a job, you know, if something did change, like we've just increased, for an example, on the plumbing side, you know, laundry drain connections used to be 1.5 inches. The new code says 2 inch. Everybody I've talked to for the inspectors, I'm fail the guy first job they go out. They're gonna say, by the way, this changed April 30th. Make sure the next one's 2 inch. So I think that works well. You know, appliances on roofs, a gas rooftop unit. You know, if it's set too close to a roof, we're not going to fail a person for it, but we're going to tell them it's got to be 6 feet away. You got to put a railing up 42 inches high. So stuff like that, I believe, happens through the inspectors.
Okay, so there's a little bit of amnesty, and you don't get dinged immediately. You know, you just get sort of educated on it, and then you could sort of move forward and do it the correct way the next time. So that's actually kind of nice. We've heard examples of people getting blindsided before, and that's, you know, you obviously nobody wants that, right? It's a headache for everybody involved, right? So the last thing I want to ask you about,
and in most cases, I have to.
Go ahead. Yeah.
No, I'm saying in most cases. I mean, I can't say 100% of the inspectors are
Depends on the
reasonable. I'll be straight up and honest with you.
So there's going to be that hard ass out there that maybe could potentially have a bone to pick with that contracting company, if possible. Is that another thing that happens? Like weird, like picayune sort of I don't want to say vendetta necessarily. That's a little dramatic, but I mean, some inspector might come down harder on some particular company because of what, personal preference or
yeah, and again, I'm thinking timing is healing all this and making this better along the way. But yes, go back, you know, 10, 15 years ago, and that was pretty prevalent. The inspector bid the job, the contractor bid the job, the other guy got it. Well, he's probably going to fail the first time around. So that's not proper, of course. So we've got that message out there. When I was inspecting full time, and when I talk to inspectors now, I like to, you know, half the job really is knowing the code book. The other half of that inspector position or code official position is common sense, personal relationships, dealing with people, communication. A lot of stuff can be solved just by talking a little bit about it. So yeah, so I can't say 100% it's perfect out there. You use the word amnesty or kind of, you know, that's not going to happen. That one guy is going to fail the job Monday morning and even know about it. But hopefully it's a very, very percentage nowadays.
Oh wow, that's hilarious. That's the kind of insight that we like here on the Mechanical Room. It's something that we don't really have. We're not really exposed to that sort of thing, and you offer a unique perspective, sort of from like you know, a top down. We're sort of like a bottom up as the manufacturer getting into the Mechanical Room, and you're the top down, godlike looking down and defining what's allowed in there, right? So so that's incredible. That's why we like to have a variety of type of guests on here. And you know, Peter, we thank you so much for doing this. It's been pretty amazing. And the last thing I really wanted to talk about or ask you about is, you know, so IAPMO was obviously concerned with, you know, saving lives. We're making these codes in place because it's a life safety issue, and you do something incorrectly, you know, like run PEX for 7 stories, and it could be tragic. So no, so you mentioned the I wish part of IAPMO, and you specifically mentioned helping bringing drinking water to an underserved Navajo reservation, I think you said. How did that whole process get started, and what other
Yes.
projects have you guys been involved in? I want to specifically highlight that because, I mean, I personally think that that's, amazing.
Pretty cool. And I didn't know that
Yes.
IAPMO did that. Maybe I
Yeah.
didn't do my homework, but that's nice to know that they give back in that way.
Exactly. Yeah. IAPMO is, it's a large company, but you have to say it's kind of a family-oriented company. It started way back nearly 100 years ago, 1926. It was a bunch of California plumbing inspectors got together to say, how can we, all kind of figure out what's going to be safe and healthy going forward. And here we are, fast forward, a large worldwide company. But their goal is just that, the old saying, protect the health and safety and all that. And that's what they do. And so with the code development, the product testing, a lot of course, but then they reach out further to say, how can we get more involved in the industry? And a lot of our, executives and senior people, other staff members are members of all kinds of stuff. I can't even remember all the, acronyms for, but, World Plumbing Council and IWISH and all these foundations. So the IWISH is our charitable foundation on the IAPMO companies. And they've done stuff overseas, again, bringing, toilets to underserved communities and all that. And they've done several projects around here. The one that, again, that kind of hits me right now close to home is, you think of our Native American reservations out there in the southwest part of the country. And, I think years ago, I kind of drove through one and that was that, didn't think much of it. But terrible numbers out there, people that do not have running water, don't have a toilet, don't have indoor plumbing. Simply heating their house, with the wood burning stove type of thing. So for a couple of years now, that's been one of the projects they're working on. Let me say it's the Navajos, and done everything from, putting in a simple countertop at a kitchen sink. And there's a video available out there. The first time this, 90-plus-year-old woman ever saw running water, brought tears to her eyes, and the plumber that made the connection started crying too. So something like that. To young children, you see them kind of running around, dirty with the no shoes thing. Well, geez, now they have a little bathroom. So I almost worked with a lot of, vendors, suppliers, distributors, labor, everything, to literally put in these tanks. So now they have running water. They would either walk for miles or drive for hours to get water on a regular basis. Now they've got water storage. And then the simple sanitary fixtures, a sink and a toilet and someplace to kind of do some dishes or clean up. And it kind of hit me because I didn't think we were still at that level here in the United States of America. You hear about that in a third world country, if I could say it that way, but you wouldn't imagine that here. So that's a big event that's kind of ongoing now. Yeah, and it's like I wish it's a charitable foundation. So as you said, Mike, IAPMO is a large company, but they do certainly give back. That's for sure. And then also the efforts are not self-centered. They're to make sure we're protecting the consumer, the homeowner, the person. A lot of people take plumbing for granted. You get up in the morning, you walk across the hall from your bedroom, and you flush that little lever. A lot goes into that, where geez, a little cool in here this morning. Let me reach this thing on the wall and turn the dial up a little bit. Now it's nice and warm. Well, people don't know all that goes behind it.
Really does put it in perspective. That's incredible that IAPMO can start doing that stuff. I think, that's a little anecdote about the woman, the 90-year-old woman with the running water. That'll stay with me. We do often take those things for granted. So it's pretty wonderful that IAPMO can contribute in that way. So let's leave it on that note because, man, that's super positive, and we'll leave you wanting more. Hear more about the charity stuff from IAPMO. So Michael, thank our guest, and let's go on back to finish the show.
Will do. Personally, thank you to you, Peter, and thank you for all IAPMO does, both in giving back to the community and also working on codes and standards and education to keep everybody across the country safe. We thank you for what you do. It's a critical part. And as Matthew and I always say about the program is, these things are not about Centrotherm. We are a small piece of the overall equation. It is really about bringing awareness to what goes on in the mechanical room and everything around the mechanical room. And again, we thank you very much for carving out some time to be with us. So with that said, Matthew, I guess I'll give it back to you. Anything else to close? And Peter, again, thanks.
Nope, that's it.
Thank you very much, Mike. Thank you, Matthew, for having me in the mechanical room. I appreciate it. Thanks.
Right. It's our pleasure, sir. Thank you very much.
And we're back. And I must say that was another winning guest. Peter was authoritative, super knowledgeable. You can tell he has passion for that stuff as well. I mean, we obviously touched on life safety issues. That's really what these codes are all about, is protecting, the citizens or the homeowners, if you will, from, dangerous installations or things that might fail that will have adverse effects, not to get too dark about it, but they're in place for safety reasons. So it's, vitally important that we have somebody like Peter with that skill set and the knowledge. I mean, the guy's got a resume that is, really, really impressive in terms of mechanical room stuff. And I mean, he knows. So he's the right guy to helm that training and teach the inspectors what's right and what's necessary in order to have safe installations. So Peter, we thank you again. And I mean, it was just a great interview. And we're going to have Peter back on, sometime in the future.
Yeah, it was great, knowledgeable, and I liked the soft approach at the tail end of that interview on how they manage kind of the personal relationships in the field. I thought that was a nice piece of that interview.
Yeah, one of the things I really like, particularly about doing this show and highlighted by chatting with Peter, is mechanical room, and what I always say, mechanical room adjacent. Now, Peter, he does have some doings with installations, more from a managerial side, but he's influencing what goes on inside the mechanical room in a very direct way, and Absolutely. He gives us insight into the process that we don't necessarily see on a day-to-day basis, right? We're sort of you and I are mechanical room adjacent. I mean, as a manufacturer, I mean, our stuff goes in the mechanical room, but we are mechanical room adjacent for the most part. Our products are not, but we are we do visit job sites and offer engineering and support in that way. But ultimately, he's on the ground level with the people who are tagging or approving installations that are life safety stuff. I mean, carbon monoxide is not to be trifled with. It's a very serious thing, and that's why those codes are in place, and that's why we need somebody like him out there helping to define the rules and explain to people who enforce the rules what's going to keep their citizens safe. So Peter, we thank you again.
As things change, as the market continues to evolve with safer, newer products, it's good to know that the Massachusetts Plumbing Board is looking at safety of their folks, and that there's organizations like IAPMO and Peter who are out there doing the right thing. So
on that note, it's time for you to put your bathing suit on and join the people in your window behind you, as we can see your kids hopping in the pool back there. So I think we'll conclude the June episode and let Mike put his Speedo on and get up on the diving board and show those kids how to really do a cannonball.
Last day of school, so they're home. God help me.
Well, it sounds as though you have some things to attend to, babysitting duties and cannonball championship, competitions, things like that. So I'll let you go. It's a nice hot summer day, and we'll be back with more Mechanical Room next month.